Well, Mark Carney's over in Italy trying to pretend that the world has respect for him, despite the fact that the world does not, because they remember him as the man that destroyed the British economy. We're going to take a look at what he had to say to the Canadian press, and I'm going to dismantle much of what he said. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. Well, Mark Carney's over in Europe and Italy because, he believes that everything is a crisis and everything is a disaster. So, of course, what do you do when it's a disaster and it's a crisis and the world is more dangerous than ever? You take a trip to Italy, of course, to swear in the Pope for people that are Catholic. I suppose it's a big deal. I don't know why our Prime Minister had to show up. And he's making quite a big deal about showing up. He's trying to make it seem like he's going over there and shaking a lot of hands. Now, I didn't keep any of the interviews he had with the various people because, honestly, it's just a bunch of theater. It's just two guys that showing up on time to the same spot and then going, action, and they come out and they say their 4 or 5 lines, and then everybody cuts to commercial. And, they move down the hall and go to the next one where the other flag was set up. And while he walks away, they change flags and 2 different people come in. He's desperate to make people believe that he's doing something. And so when he was asked about the budget, you would think that he would have something strong to say. But it turns out, well, I'm going to let you hear it, and then I'm going to point to all of the inconsistencies in it, because you and I as Canadians need to see it for what it is. Before we jump into it, I'll show you just the meetings between these 4 leaders and how Carney is so desperate to have people think that he's over in Italy doing something of consequence, that he's trying desperately to get the EU and all of these countries to make it seem like he has credibility on the world stage, which we all know that he doesn't. However, he's got his own press corps. He's got a private press corps like, CBC, CTV Global. They follow him around like puppy dogs and they fawn over him. It's kind of, well, it's a little gross, if I'm honest with you, the way that they fawn over him. However, it's no different than the way they fawned over Trudeau. And I guess when the guy holds your purse strings, that's the trade-off. All you got to do is sell out your dignity and your credibility and you'll get a weekly paycheck. Don't know that it's worth it, but who am I? So anyway, here he is with the German Prime Minister. And of course, it's interesting that they have to throw the EU flag in there. Then they have the president of the EU, or I forget her name, Ursula something, I think. I don't think that she's that good of a politician, and she's really barely holding the EU together. Then he met with Zelensky, who really only showed up because Canada sent him a lot of checks. Zelensky is firmly in the coattails of Donald Trump, and all other people either do what Donald Trump wants or get out of the way, because Zelensky has done a 180 for Donald Trump. You'll remember how in January he was a big tough talker, and now he's like, please, Mr. Trump, come in and take any material that you want, and I will absolutely sit on a conference call with you and Mr. Putin. And then, of course, there's the Italian lady who I think is quite sharp. But I find it funny that she's the only one that wouldn't speak to him in English. And she brought a translator to whisper in his ear. I would also point to how, if you look at the way that they're sitting, it's remarkable how similar it is, in my opinion.
There'll be a budget in the fall. In the short term, it's a very short parliamentary session that is coming up. The speech from the throne is on the 27th, as people know. The House is due to rise under the House's rules by the 20th of June, so it's really 3 weeks. We have some very clear priorities, which, as you know, from following those who followed the campaign, those who followed my remarks, those who followed my opening press conference, would include the federal government taking all the steps it can to help create one Canadian economy out of 13, in addition, initiatives such as the middle class tax cut. But there will be a budget in the fall.
To that point, with your economic experience as a former governor of 2 central banks, why not present Canadians with a budget at the very first opportunity?
Well, this is in fact based on my economic experience. There is not much value in my judgment, and it's considered judgment, and it's judgment based on experience, that there is not much value in trying to rush through a budget in a very narrow window, 3 weeks, with a new cabinet, effectively a new finance minister, just reappointed, but a new finance minister, rush that through, for example, in advance of the NATO summit, which happens after Parliament rises. So the NATO summit, 23rd, 24th, that is going to be a very important event for the security of Canada, but also it will have fiscal implications. It will have budgetary implications for Canada. That's one example. To have a budget before we substantially advance further our discussions with the Americans with respect to our economic partnership, to have greater clarity around that. I'm not saying we'll have perfect clarity, but to have greater clarity around that. Again, that's another factor. A third factor, one of the things that we emphasized and are working on from the start of this new mandate is improving the efficiency of government spending, looking where we can reduce costs at all possible, and improving the productivity of the public sector. We are launching that those set of initiatives, having greater visibility on that as we prepare a budget. All of those three factors, so defense spending, the economic outlook, including the tariff relationship with the United States and the efficiency, all of those coming together, we will have a much more comprehensive, effective, ambitious, prudent budget in the fall.
Well, what a load of BS that turned out to be. We already know from Philip Champagne that he was giving marching orders in that first caucus meeting to come out and tell the world, tell Canada, that they were never going to table a budget. It was going to be the fall economic statement that was coming in October. Now, all of a sudden, it's not that he's not going to table a budget. It just doesn't have enough time right now. So, first of all over X, Melanie Joly is like, oh, we're going to make 13 out of 1, 13 out of 1. None of that matters. It's all the premiers. There's nothing really federal that can be done about it. And I wish that they would stop acting like they're the central government of China and start realizing that they have certain mandates and certain things they can accomplish and certain things they cannot accomplish. And they have to appreciate that what we're talking about is because a lot of the products were the same. And so the industry going from one to the other without the infrastructure, it's ridiculous. Anyway, then they want to talk about how, oh, no, it's Trump's fault, right? We got to find out what Trump is going to do for him. First of all, no, if you're worrying about 13 under 1, then that should be all you're worried about. You got to worry about our economy. You're not worried about what Trump is doing. You're not worried about, it's not Trump's fault. Stop it. Like, I'm just so tired of it. It's like, oh, Trump is coming, blah, 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 blah. Vote for me. It's a crisis. Okay, you got your vote. Well, it'll be fine. We'll get to it. We'll get to it in a few months. No big deal. I mean, I got the NATO. I got to go to Italy. I got the G7. I mean, I'm a very popular guy, and I don't really have the time to put together a budget, even though I claim that I'm an economic wizard and a master of all economies, and that in an emergency, what you need is someone like me. Now I've decided that it's not that big of a deal. There's no worries. Trump will decide what we're going to put into our budget, and if we can maybe get a couple of the premiers to agree to a trade deal, that'll be fine. Pipeline or energy, that can all wait. There's no big deal. It's no crisis. Unbelievable. This is our leader, folks, who thinks that he isn't going to be called out on his 180-degree change from one week to the next, and what we can only call a load of BS that was his entire campaign. And I hate to break it to all of you that cast your vote for him, but you bought it hook, line, and sinker. And now look, no big deal. I got what I wanted from them. So if I can just get two people to cross the floor, then I can get a full-blown majority, and I won't ever have to worry about being called to be challenged in a no confidence vote for at least 3 years. Excellent work. It's a good job out there being very smart with your vote. And now that Trump has just gone away, quietly gone away, well, they're still trying to blame him, and they're still trying to convince you that it's all about the interprovincial trade. And on top of all of that, he says, well, if we work too hard right now, we're going to be spending too much money. So we want to make sure that the government, is fiscally prudent. So we'll let you know again in October. The audacity is insulting.
There are now reports that NATO's chief is calling on NATO members to increase defense spending to 5% by 2032. Are you prepared to do that?
A couple of things. One, the way we look at defense spending is from the perspective of security of Canadians. So first, and in a more dangerous and divided world. So first and foremost, we have signaled and we've started to take serious action, including with over-the-horizon radar and with troop presence, air, land, sea, cyber in the north, but securing Canada's Arctic, securing our borders, greater participation as required with our allies. So all of those are coming together. The question, I've had this discussion with a number of other leaders, G7 leaders just over the last 24 hours, the importance of starting with the outcome, what are we getting, and then working backwards to what it costs, not starting with a number or a percentage that is a cost and then try to figure out how to spend it. That's the exact opposite way of how things should be done. So that's why it's important to have these intensive discussions that we are having with allies, G7 allies, European allies, the Americans, the Australians, and others, so that we're specifying how to get things done, how to accomplish greater security for Canadians.
Well, two things I can tell about Mark Carney in the little time that I've been watching him. When he has no idea what to say, he says, And when he is cornered, he will pretend like he's smarter than you in an effort to try and intimidate you. I promise you, in no way, shape, or form am I intimidated by Mark Carney's intellect. Not even slightly, if I'm completely candid with you. Which allows me to hear it for what he just said, which was, well, we're not going to be committing to the 5% because, well, if we commit to the 5%, then we won't know what we're getting for that 5%. So rather, we're going to decide what we're going to make and then see how much it costs. And, you know, if it costs what it costs, then it costs what it costs. And it's like, okay, time out there, bud. We have no military. So you should be prepared to throw 20, 30, 40, 50% of our overall budget at this problem until it is corrected. We have the largest coastline in the world. In fact, we have so much coastline that the next country to us, which is Indonesia, an island chain, has half as much coastline as we do. It's an island chain, an archipelago. And they have 300 and some odd combat vessels in their Navy. Canada has less than 40. I suppose if we had the Navy, we wouldn't be able to staff it because we don't have any recruitment or any retention for those that do get recruited. In addition to that, talking to Australia about over-the-horizon radar, which I've had a little look at, it's still really in the development stages in the sense that they have three sets of it, but the guy that runs after it is still just a researcher. They don't really have a practical application to it. And why on earth would it matter to us if we had over-the-horizon radar through the North Pole when we don't have any? So it would be like, okay, they're coming, everybody hide in the basement. I mean, there's not like we have any military that we can deploy. It's not like we have the resources and the infrastructure and the network that we can put anybody in the field. We would basically just have to, bend over and take it dry. So I don't know why we're worrying about over-the-horizon radar when we have NATO and we have the Americans watching our northern border all the time. What we should be worrying about is putting, material and into the ground, taking it out of the ground and putting it into the hands of our troops, right into the hands of our soon-to-be warrior culture. On top of that, if you're talking to Australia about how we're going to prepare the North, that's a bit of a weird thing, as most of the Australia doesn't really get any snow. I mean, for all I know, none of it gets any snow, but I will just go err on the side of caution and say the bulk of it doesn't get any snow. And what we should be talking to is countries like Norway and Finland and see how they maintain their northern perimeters, and even Russia itself to see how they maintain their northern perimeters and what issues they come up against in the cold or in the snow or in the distances that they have to combat, how they build their buildings. Those kinds of information would be better served not from South Korea or Australia. from, other Nordic countries. That would probably be the best place to begin that. And those should be the people, non-G7 individuals and countries that we should be talking to. In addition to that, they might have technology that they're willing to sell us that would leapfrog our situation, or that we can copy off of and begin to manufacture in our own country. Because the secret, the catch, the trick is to have the manufacturing in our own country. Now, he answered a lot of questions on military, which I'm going to have to do a separate video on, because the ridiculousness of his comments are starting to really kind of, they put me in a bit of a mood, if I'm honest with you. The equipment and material we need to defend, say, Vancouver or Southern Ontario is nowhere near the same equipment we need to defend Nunavut or Yukon. But it doesn't matter to this guy. That's the thing you have to see. He doesn't care. He got what he wanted, and now he doesn't care. The whole country could sink to the ground for all he cares. He's in Italy. He's having a great time, and he's not going to be worried about how he makes a budget. All of a sudden, just like that, there is no more crisis. He talks about how it's a divided and dangerous world. It's a divided country, bud. And that's really what you need to be concentrating on. Who cares what's going on in the neighbor's house when your own house is falling down?
U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin tomorrow, along with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky separately. You just met with Zelensky for the first time face-to-face. Do you believe there is an opening here for peace? And are you expected to speak to Trump following those discussions tomorrow? Yes.
So independent of these discussions, I'm sure I will be speaking with the president in the future, yes.
Do you have a call scheduled with him tomorrow?
I don't have one scheduled. I don't have a call scheduled with the president tomorrow. I'm seeing the vice president today. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough for me. For the moment.
So now we see that Trump doesn't have any respect for Mark Carney or the Liberal Party en masse. Let's look at some of the things that Mark Carney is mimicking on Donald Trump. Donald Trump and Germany have agreed that NATO should go to 5% spending, and Mark Carney has to make a big show about meeting with Germany. Donald Trump hammers out a deal in Ukraine and is bringing Russians to the table, even though Putin is not showing up on his own self, which I could explain to you, but we'll just stay on Mark Carney for right now. And Mark Carney has to make a big show about meeting with the guy from Ukraine, Zelensky. Of course, they're in Italy, so you can appreciate that woman is probably shaking 100 hands today and had herself in front of every camera on earth. And lastly, we see him meeting with the EU, who he's hoping he will be able to sell our steel to at 3 times the cost of what the Americans are going to be able to sell it to him for, or what the Chinese are going to be able to sell it to him for. All because he wants you to think that he on the world stage is even with Donald Trump. If someone like Jordan Peterson had him on the couch, Mark Carney on the couch, he would indicate that Mark Carney has a problem that he needs to overcome. He needs to be taken seriously. He's looking for validation, which is why he walks around everywhere with that Order of Canada pin on, because he wants you to think that he's some sort of a hero to the country. He needs you to see that as his, he needs you. It's like if you won a trophy, you carried it with you everywhere. That's exactly all that is when he puts that lapel pin on. Now, I get that if he wants to wear his lapel pin, he earned it, it's his, right? But why doesn't he have a Canadian flag on? How come he never wants to wear the Canadian flag, but he always wants to wear the Order of Canada? And how valid will the Order of Canada be when the country gets torn to shreds? And how can he put on a pin of the Order of Canada and claim that he's an officer in the Order of Canada while he worries not about what's going on with Canada? While he runs around desperate to compete with Donald Trump, whether it be from this attempt to try to make a signature on the paper and make it look like it's an executive order, or talking to all the people that Trump's talking to, going to Britain, and then Trump hammers out a deal with Britain. And the idea that Mark Carney is somehow going to stop us from becoming the 51st state. He is completely enamored with everything American. He moved his headquarters to the Americas. He does everything to help the Americas. He bought a pipeline in America. He doesn't talk back to Donald Trump, who's the president of America, and he wants to be like Trump. He's enamored with, just like everyone on the far left, they are obsessed with what's going on in the United States of America. And so I don't see this elbows up attitude at all. I don't see this, I'm going to be the only one who deals with Trump. Trump is letting him speak to Vance, who they are actively grooming to be the president for the next 2 sessions after Trump retires, or after Trump's tenure comes to an end. However, he's still the vice president and not, and we're meeting with the prime minister of Canada. So I don't know that exactly reflects the attitude or the campaign trail rhetoric that Mark Carney was throwing around. And I'm not trying to cast shade on Vance or even Carney for that sense. I'm trying to get people to understand that you cast your vote the wrong way. And now we can see it already, just how quickly he didn't care what you had to say about it after you gave him your vote. This is exactly that guy that you used to date who promised you that he would call you and he never has. This is exactly the same thing that you fell for. Carney and the rest of them spun a whole bunch of stories, told you everything you wanted to hear, terrified you and scared you. You gave him your vote, and now for the next 3 years, he doesn't have to listen to a single solitary word you said because he's sure that he can get somebody in the block to help him not get trouble for a no confidence vote. All the while, he's trying to convince you that the House is going to stand up in June instead of saying, well, we're going to make legislation so that we can get down to business because we haven't done anything. So we'll get a special order and we'll make everybody sit down. No, he doesn't want that because he doesn't want to do the job. He just wants to travel around in the private jet. And I'm sure he's quite worried about being in the House of Commons in case he gets exposed as to not being able to withstand much of the debate. He's probably happy that Pierre Poilievre's not going to be in the House, but the Conservatives have a very strong bench when it comes to debate, and there's really going to be nowhere for them to hide. Carney will have to do like Trudeau did and not show up in the building. I'm getting ahead of myself. I get a little fired up when I hear this guy talk. And then when I compare it to what he was saying on the campaign trail, I realize that who knows how far he's willing to go if he's completely shameless already. It's already been 10 years of shamelessness. It's time that we had somebody with a little bit of dignity or a little bit of integrity at the helm, I think. I'm going to wrap here. Before I do, I want to encourage you all to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with all of your socials. You let me know down in the comments. Do you think that Mark Carney sold us a bill of goods, or should I be giving him more of an opportunity and giving him more time to solve all of Canada's pressing issues? I want to thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.